Okay, round two. Hans is going to join us this time. And we're going to talk more about intimacy. I'll be interested to hear what he has to say. His definition of intimacy. I just shared my brief 5-minute ramble about intimacy. If I can hit the button. Yay, technology. What the heck?
Hi there. My
Hello, you're wearing
apologies.
a hat too today.
I'm wearing a hat today too, and I'm still sitting in my car because I apologize to anybody who might have signed in earlier and I wasn't there. And apologies, especially to you, Sarah. I host a men walking group. It's an informal way for men to just get together, and usually we have some dogs and often a child along, and who knows what will turn up. And it's interesting that our topic today is intimacy because uh, one of the guys was talking about, so he's a little bit older than me and he's been married for a long time, and his wife they just got a diagnosis of early stage dementia. And so he was sharing some intimate stuff with us, which is, what I really want to have happen in these walking groups. I mean, sometimes we talk about hockey or soccer or something too. It's not like we always talk about earth-shattering things, but it was just a reminder. So the other man who was there was a lot younger, and I guess at some point we'll be looking at his parents maybe going through that stuff. But when we I know when my father started to slip into dementia, it just raises a lot of questions about what's really important. And I'm kind of launching into this, Sarah, so I don't know if you were going to set the stage or anything. And please, if you want to say something, I'll step back. But I'm feeling
Go
kind
ahead.
of on a roll here. Well, because our question today is, what is intimacy? And if anybody's watching this and listening to it, please raise your hand or send us a comment about what you think intimacy is, or what questions you might have, or your thoughts on that. As I often say, we use this word intimacy as some kind of shorthand for sex, but it's a lot of things. It's a lot of things, and maybe it's in some context and with some special people it becomes, or sexuality is part of that. But it has to do with my relationship with my father when he was living, and the kind of intimacy that developed, especially as he softened. It was one of the interesting things about him starting to slip into dementia was that he just got softer, and it was easier for us, and particularly my sister, to feel close to him. I'd always felt close to him, and I was used to his kind of brusque demeanor, and we had a sense of humor around stuff. But as he got softer, there was just more space for me to be in a different way, and not always be in this, edgy kind of way that a lot of us men can be with each other. We love each other, and some of the ways that we love each other is to tease each other mercilessly, and that's great. And there can be an intimacy there as well, but it's also really nice when there's that softening. So today, this friend of mine who was watching his wife slowly slip away, and one of the things that he talks about is, so they've been together I think they celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary a couple of years ago, and they've been through a lot in those 50 plus years, and he feels like so much of how they used to connect is disappearing, like that she's changing, and the things that are important, that used to be important to her and that they shared, aren't there. And what he's struggling with is like what is his relationship? Who is he? How do, how does he be himself? And who is she? And I don't know if I've mentioned the Heidi Priebus poem. I think it's called A Thousand Funerals. But it's this lovely poem that basically talks about it. If you're in a committed relationship with someone, you're basically signing up for 1,000 funerals, because who that person is, who you are, who we are together, that's going to just change. And there's got to be space for that change, but also space for the grieving of it, and the being aware of that. So for me, intimacy includes, or when I think about intimate, that's an intimate place. The grief space is an intimate place, and it doesn't have to be about death, and it doesn't have to be about divorce or end of a relationship. It can actually be happening in a relationship, that there's this kind of change, and that I can feel sad about that, and that I can feel okay feeling sad and sharing that.
Well, even to add to that, like as a woman, in my relationship, Dan's mom passed away, so there was that grief. But then for me, there was also the grief of moving from maiden to mother in that shift, and now the grief of having one child and going to two children. In those simple things, that's an intimate place I can share with Dan or my other friends. So yes, grief isn't always about death.
No, and our intimacy can happen in, like you said, lots of different places and lots of different ways. And uh, as you and I are talking about this retreat that we're going to lead, and for anybody who's listening, one of the things that one of the reasons Sarah and I are having a lot of these conversations is because we're going to be hosting a Arts of Sacred Intimacy retreat in a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, 2 weeks. It's coming fast.
2.5.
And there, 2.5, and there is still, so the marketing part, so the promotional part, there is still space for one couple or two singles, and then we're full. And part of that is because we want to have an intimate space. We don't want to have this huge experience. We want to have something that where people feel comfortable or more comfortable as they get uncomfortable, because that's I think that's part of the experience of intimacy, is being willing to be a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit vulnerable. And so, what I'm thinking about are some of the techniques that we're going to teach to help get to the edge of vulnerability, and to hold that space for ourselves, but also for the another person, and particularly someone who we say we love, and try to explore what that feels like to love somebody through different ways of expressing and being intimate and being vulnerable. So again, I'm going to invite anybody who's listening to this to, ask a question about intimacy, or to make a suggestion about how you experience or you understand intimacy.
I shared just briefly, Hans, the Oxford definition of intimacy, and it's close familiarity or friendship. Closeness.
Hmm.
And then the
Wait.
other,
Mhm.
oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask, is that enough for you? Is that enough for a definition of intimacy for you? It seems.
Was it, it's, it makes it very straightforward and brief in that way. Um, but I also shared my personal, what I use as a definition for intimacy. So I
Mhm.
got that from a friend of mine, and he shared it with me. And it's not actually a definition, it's more of just like, what does the word say itself? And it says, into me you see.
Mm,
So
I like
letting
that.
someone actually see you
Mhm.
is intimacy. And what do you let other people see?
Mhm.
That's always up to you.
Mhm.
And how much do you let them see, and who sees what part of you, and that sort of thing, and or who sees all of you. And that to me is like real intimacy, when you can see the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, and still have love. Like, to me, that's true intimacy.
I mentioned this in. I mean, some of you may have seen the interview I did with Stephen Jenkinson and Kimberly Ann Johnson last week, where they were talking about matrimony and patrimony and things like that, and I say this all the time. I quote one of my teachers who says, in marriage asks you to go to the place of hating each other and then going through that. So yeah, to not only see the ugliness of the other person, but to see it in myself and to feel it and not hide. I mean, that's been one of my big struggles, is to not hide those parts of myself that I'm not proud of, and to let somebody, yeah, see into me. I really like that. Um, and not be caught up in trying to be, this perfect version of who I could be or who I should be, and it's a big it's a big thing, intimacy. Like, it's way bigger than, I think that Oxford definition is just, because while I think using it as a shorthand for being sexual is not accurate, I think I would hope that when I'm being sexual with someone, that I'm fully revealing myself, and that's been an interesting, struggle. So with sometimes in the hurry to be sexual, there's forgetting that for me to really experience that deeply, I need to be fully vulnerable and allow the other person to see into me,
Mm-hmm.
and to, yeah.
And then that kind of goes into a whole other conversation of like, you can be sexual without being intimate.
Ah,
When
yeah.
you can be intimate without being sexual, and but where do the two interplay? And that's an interesting conversation. But I think we should wrap up and see if anyone has any comments. I feel like this, like you said, like the Oxford Dictionary is so brief. I feel like the definition of intimacy could be a book.
So we're going to try to acquaint ourselves with some of the chapters of that book in our retreat. So if you come to that, these are the kinds of things that we're going to be exploring, and certainly in the context of a committed couple relationship. Um, but yes,
But we are welcoming singles to join, and we'll match you with a practice partner. So there's that option as
yeah,
well. But there's only space for one more couple. So if you're keen, message us soon.
yeah. Message ASAP, because there's not much time left.
Yeah. Thank you, Hans.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you for your flexibility on this call. And my apologies for being late.
Oh, well. The world is fluid, and the work we do is fluid. So I appreciate you.
Likewise.
Okay.
Okay,
Bye.
we'll talk. Well, just one more thing. So if you are part of this call, know that regularly Sarah and I talk about these kind of things and ask questions. So watch her or my Instagram for upcoming short chats. We also host a monthly apprenticeship to love virtual workshop, and that happens towards the end of the month generally, and you'll see that listed at sacredbodies.ca/events.
And that one happens
And
Zoom, so it's a little bit more interactive
yeah,
and it's more practice based. So we're doing more practices.
yeah,
There's still conversation, but less conversation, more practice.
that's right. Very practical, in fact. Practical practices.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thanks everybody who watches this. Bye bye.